All right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Motor City Metrics podcast here at TigersMLReport.com. I'm Rahul Kasi. Alongside me is Cameron and Uper. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Tiger Miley Report, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And join us momentarily will be Chrystal O'Keefe of SouthSideSox, as we're going to be talking some Chicago White Sox. A lot of stuff going on with the Tigers. Plenty to get to with that. And but I wanted to have Chrystal on because we're going to start. We haven't had a guest in a while. It seems like we haven't had any in a while. Chris is off this evening because it is election night, so the Brown household is busy in the throes of. Oh gosh, what is it? Is it Washington? No. I'm not. Brighton is in. Yeah, Livingston County. So Livingston County politics out there.
They're knee deep in local politics tonight.
Yeah, local politics, and exactly. So there's millages to be passed and all that stuff. But thank you for joining us on a Tuesday evening. But yeah, there's the newest Tiger. But there's a new Tiger. There's some Tigers have opted out. There's a lot to get to. But until we'll wait until Chrystal gets here, let's talk a little bit about the trade that took place over the weekend, which kind of really surprised. I think caught everybody off guard. And as soon as I say that, Chrystal. Chrystal is now joining us. Hey, Chrystal, how you doing?
Hey, hello. How are you?
Doing well. Just wanted it was funny because we're talking about the Mark. Is it Canha? Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
Canha
trade, and I know you also have some Milwaukee ties too. So, but really, the first question I have to ask you is, what the hell happened? I mean, I know it sounds like a very broad question, but also it was just kind of those things where even in terms of the new GM in town, I don't know. There's so many questions, but let's just start with that one. What the hell happened exactly?
Yeah, of course. First off, sorry, my dog is probably going to bark this entire time now. So the White Sox were just really bad. I mean, injuries are going to plague every single team, no matter what. And when a lot of your stars go down, it's gonna suck. But also, our starting pitching was garbage this year. When the most consistent pitcher is the one that every single person hates, it's not a good sign. It looks like Dylan Cease regressed a lot. Lucas Giolito regressed a ton. Obviously, our bullpen was full of injuries, so there was no Liam Hendricks. There was no Garrett Crochet all season. And then it just seemed like, and I think it's always funny saying this, but the vibes were just really off with the team and the clubhouse, with how things were being managed. And it seemed like there was just a ton of tension brewing and people wanting to leave. And yes, the curse of La Russa for sure.
But Chrystal, I even heard some loose reports like in August that there was no guarantee Pedro Griffo will be back for a second year. Has that died down? I mean, will he be back?
Yeah, he will be back. They actually just very recently announced their coaching staff for the season. He did sign another, I think his contract was originally 2 years anyway. And Jerry only cares about being mediocre because if you win a couple games, fans are going to come. But yeah, we have like one superstar on the team now. So
that was one of the most damning pieces of audio, or actually quoted, not exactly audio, but quoted things I've seen in a long time from an owner that really just basically said, hey, if we try, the fans are still going to come out. And I think fans in Chicago have seen enough. And especially when you see something like today or yesterday, for example, the Brewers get swiped by their own division opponent for Craig Counsell. And so is there any, I mean, I don't know what the reaction is on the South side for that, but I think that shows that the Cubs are, I mean, the Cubs got some brass ones apparently, and also they're not afraid to take some risks.
Yeah, for sure. They honestly, they kind of came back towards the end of the season. It got a little exciting for the North side for sure. And to just completely just dismantle everything and get rid of like your beloved David Ross. It was just wild to me. Like that was cold blooded. But it's good. I know Cubs fans are really excited. Council's great. He was great with the Brewers, I felt like too, for a few years.
Yeah, and it seems like with the Brewers too. I don't know about you guys, but Cameron, based off the trade for Mark for Canha, always again pronouncing things incorrectly, but with that trade, it's basically the Brewers are saying, "Hey, we're gonna start kind of not necessarily giving it away, but a sign of things to come in Milwaukee." Especially, also, there's been rumors too that they might be moving.
So from what I've seen from Milwaukee fans, they're pretty upset at the loss of Canha. But just like the Tigers, they also have a very young outfield with Christian Yelich. And I guess the Brewers feel that Yelich already fills the veteran role. So they can just move on from Canha and then have the rest of their young outfield play. I guess that's a benefit for Detroit. But yeah, I feel like the Brewers I guess they don't feel like they have a team that can make a run in the postseason, because it feels like they ended up winning the Central pretty easily after the trade deadline. And then they're just abandoning that for some reason, just off. And then the loss of their manager now, like, I don't know, I guess when it rains, it pours.
Yeah. And that's kind of how it feels like with the White Sox too, in terms of just kind of looking at their off-season outlook, really. And so, Chrystal, as far as looking at what they're going to address, as far as what they're going to, Tim Anderson now is no longer going to be in Chicago, and I'm sure you saw that coming too. But is there any type of hope, or any names already been targeted with Chicago?
I haven't heard any names yet. But today, actually, they interviewed our new general manager, and he said there is not a single player right now that is untouchable on this team. So it seems like he's maybe ready to blow it up, which is honestly refreshing to hear. I mean, obviously, please keep Luis Robert Jr., because, again, he is like the only name on our team right now that people are going to come see. But it is refreshing to hear, like, I'm okay with blowing it up. Like, it's a full rebuild, get some players and develop them. But at the same time, this is a GM who has struggled for the past 7 years to develop in the minor leagues. So we'll actually see how that ends up. But yeah, I really hope they actually do go after people. And they've opened up a lot of spots. So obviously they need multiple positions. And I know Clevenger declined his offer, so we're kind of free up on that. And like I said, they got rid of like a bunch of people already. So I think I'm not going to get my hopes up, but I think it might be a halfway decent off season.
Wow, I mean, that's optimism. That's something that I'm not used to seeing from your side of the things.
No, never.
Were people surprised or disappointed they didn't do a more extensive search for a new GM and just kind of dip down in-house to a popular guy in the organization?
Yeah, they always will be. It was the same, they didn't do extensive research for Tony La Russa. So we kind of knew it was going to go to Getz anyway. So we had like a maybe half day of excitement when we heard about Hahn and Williams leaving, and then we're like, oh, but it's going to go to Getz, and that's going to suck.
Yeah, it's one of those things too where I'm looking at the roster construction right now, and even with the trade, one of those things when I saw the return on Jake Burger which wasn't bad, but it still seems like the White Sox are very thin pitching wise, and so even I don't see them, unless you could tell me otherwise. Do you really see them going after a big name for free? Because I was looking at MLB trade rumors today, the White Sox were linked to quite a bit of names out there, and I just don't see them. This last year, granted, was the first time they ever spent that much kind of money on Andrew Benintendi's contract, right? That was that's their biggest free agent signing, right?
Yes, he is our biggest free agent signing to date, which is humiliating. There's kind of just a big joke among White Sox fans right now that we're we're just gonna get like Whit Merrifield, and if you're not somehow related to the Kansas City Royals, we don't want you anywhere because we've just kind of turned into the Kansas City White Sox based on the people that we keep bringing.
Well, and that's where Chris Getz played, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's where Pedro coached.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
I mean, Benintendi was there. It's like always associated with the White Sox and Royals, and it's embarrassing. Like we're scraping the bottom of the barrel because they still finished under the White Sox. So I don't know why we go to a team that's worse than us to help out.
I guess, you know, it's really interesting that I did not know you're the person when last time you were on our show, whenever that was, or maybe 2 times ago, that illuminated me to the idea that they've never signed a 9-figure contract, right? There's never been $100 million contract in the history of the White Sox. Yeah. I had no idea about that until you said it. And that's still the case. And it's just amazing in this day.
Yeah. I mean, it's embarrassing when someone like Andrew Benintendi, who is kind of out of his prime at this point, is still your highest paid free agent signing.
Yeah, and looking at some of the pitchers that are out there right now that are kind of middle, like kind of like that would fit the rotation, whether it's, I don't know why I see Alex Wood becoming a future Chicago White Sox. Maybe Kyle Gibson. I mean, he's been traveled around the AL Central still for whatever reason. I see that happening. But in terms of starting pitchers, Chrystal, I mean, are we talking like 3 or 4 signings here, or are they going to look? You think they're going to go eternal?
I wouldn't say that. I mean, I say maybe 2 signings, and then the rest will be internal, even though there isn't really a lot down in the farm system right now. Like I said, Getz had 7 years to fix that system, and it was never fixed. So unless we're getting prospects or trading, for minor league players, like, I mean, the Burger trade, again, it was a good trade, but that's the only way we're going to get decent players is if we trade with another team.
Give them all away. Well, basically, I'll give them all away at this point. You know, it's funny. I did see on the coaching staff, Grady Sizemore, which is just a name for anybody that I did not know, I didn't have any. Was he coaching previously or anything? And then Marcus Timms, by the way, was going to be former Tiger. Marcus Timms going to be the hitting coach for Chicago.
Yeah, that one is good. Honestly, the coaches that they've selected so far have been good. Grady has been coaching somewhere. I can't remember off the top of my head where, but I was really actually excited about that move. I'm hoping he comes out of retirement and can maybe like bat second, play right field. But yeah, their coaching has actually been halfway decent. I still think Ethan Katz needs to go because he destroyed our pitching rotation. But
Chrystal, tell me quick, if you don't mind, your opinion. Tim Anderson went from a guy who was a batting champion, could hit 330 plus, to last year, hitting whatever it was, 240, slugging well under 300, 1 home run. I mean, power was completely gone. Was it an injury? Was it attitude? Was it bad luck? Was it a mixture of all 3? And where did it go?
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of a lot of different things, honestly. I do think he was playing injured throughout most of the season, but there were a ton of personal things going on in his life that I think really, and I hate to blame it on that, but I really do think that can affect players and kind of their mentality throughout the entire game. Because, the big thing, 2 seasons ago was that his wife, Bria, always cooks spaghetti and meatballs for every home run he hits. And then there were marital issues with the 2 of them. So that, was no longer being spoken about. But I think he also just, he says that he loves Chicago, and he said he's kind of sad because he wanted to stay there. But I really think he was ready for a change of scenery because it's just, it's so negative here. And there have been so many reports coming out of like clubhouse stuff that are like, oh, well, he got into it with Yasmani and he doesn't want to be here and he hates it here. So I think just a lot of these things factor into why he had such a bad season.
So it was the on-field and off-field kind of mixture, sounds like.
Yeah, he had a lot going on the outside. And, you know, and it doesn't help that when you are kind of in a slump, these fans show you no mercy at all. And unfortunately, he's also one of the players that is going to constantly be hit with really racist remarks. I mean, there's still people that will sit there and boo him and call him Jackie after he had made the comparison to Jackie Robinson. So he's constantly met with criticism and racism, and then playing on an injury. I think he was just miserable at the end of the day, and it showed on and off the field.
On the team's losing too, that doesn't help either, right? And
Yeah.
did it affect his defense much? His slump? Late?
Kind of, yeah. He made a ton of errors this season too. Like it was, and you know, there's nobody else to really play shortstop. So watching him kind of make these mental errors on the field is really frustrating as well.
So Baez and Anderson were competing at the end of the year for worst qualified hitter in the American League in Major League Baseball.
Showdown.
And speaking of fielding, I had to look it up since I was on his Fangraphs page. -16 defensive runs saved. So just a reminder to Tigers fans that it can always be worse. That it leads me into the one question I had for you is what came first in this season, the bad vibes or the losing? Because I think it was the middle of the year, and I remember there was a fight between Anderson and Grindel, and I forgot what was right before that even started that. And
I mean, I feel like because we beat the Astros on opening day, and everyone was like, "Oh, this is going to be great," and then it's like, "Oh, we lost 6 games in a row." But I think the bad vibes really came in. I think there was just a lot of loose ends from Tony from the clubhouse that really damaged it. And then just, again, players that don't want to be here. The fight with Yasmani, and then the incredibly embarrassing knockout punch during the season. So I think bad vibes just really caused this team to go downhill very quickly.
I think it does stem from the lack of like just the team chemistry thing. Even this goes back from last year where you see, I forgot who had a big moment pitching wise, and you see the locker room, everybody's just kind of looking down and doing their own thing, especially with Anderson too. And I think with Tim Anderson, it is a change of scenery. We're doing good, but the question is market wise. I mean, it's the shortstop market. Excuse me. I'm just trying to see where would you see a good fit for him?
I don't know. I mean, he's got a house out in Los Angeles anyway. I feel like just going out on the West Coast where they have a ton of money to just throw at somebody. You know, the Dodgers are constantly throwing money, and they seem to have a really good system in place. I mean, they have a ton of prospects that come up phenomenal. So, I mean, I see something like that, and I feel like that's where all of the White Sox go to sometimes thrive, is LA.
Yeah, out west, it seems like to be therapeutic for everybody out there. Especially, it was interesting to see. God, what's a pitcher? Why am I drawing a blank all of a sudden? Big dude, Giolito too. But I was thinking of guy who started for the Dodgers,
Lance Lynn.
Yeah, Lance Lynn.
Oh yeah,
yeah, that was weird. He was out there to see that. But besides that, I know Chrystal, you cover a couple of other teams. Was there any, in terms of surprises or anything that, or actually, well, should rephrase the question. What else are you looking forward to this offseason involving your other teams you follow? Because I know you do some stuff with, feels like the Mets. There's a lot of other teams you're involved with. So I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, I do a lot of stuff for the Mets. I actually have some I have all kinds of teams bobbleheads up here. Let's see what I've got. Well, we have a now defunct Mets Max Scherzer and my Pete Alonso. But then I also have some nasty nester. I went to a Yankees game and it was a giveaway day, and I've got this random Rockies Jedi Chris Bryant. So yeah, I deal with a ton of teams. I actually was just very recently asked to start covering some San Francisco Giants baseball, and that's one of the groups that still works with Sports Illustrated, because I know they knocked a ton of their baseball teams, like the White Sox were kind of kicked out of that. So I will get to focus on the Giants a bit more, which is fun because I loved them in my teenage years when it was Tim Lincecum, who's one of my all-time favorites.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, I could.
That's a good one. I like that one.
So yeah, I'll be doing a lot of Mets, a lot of Giants, a lot of White Sox, and then I kind of just stick with, what's kind of around me anyway. So again, I have a ton of like Brewers Mutual, so I watch a lot of those games. I watch a lot of Pirates games because their farm team is down where I'm from. So there's going to be a ton of eyes on everything. I'd love to see again what Andrew McCutchen ends up doing if he just retires post injury, which will be incredibly sad. And just seeing where all of my former White Sox babies end up. Like, I'm curious because again, Lance is old. I hate to say it, but in baseball terms, he's ancient. He's my age. And then Yasmani Grandal is really old and has really, really terrible knees. So I'm curious if these guys are even going to get picked up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to. Everybody talks about it was such a outrage about Javi Baez getting picked up or him opting in, and I can think of worse things. And the one thing I can think of is the Chicago White Sox roster situation.
Yeah,
I mean, quite frankly, it's for everybody that bitched about that. Baez, like, just really shut up.
yeah.
Look at the shortstop market.
Go look at our roster right now and see if you recognize more than 5 names.
Yeah, and, I mean, right now I'm literally struggling. Like, I'm thinking about this right now. Honestly, like I'm outside of, I was just thinking about this for a moment because I know they had a player in the Arizona Fall League that did really well, but beyond that, it is a drop off even on prospect side of things. So you can find Chrystal on X/Twitter, wherever you still want to call it, at Chrystal_OK. And you can find all the work. She is, again, a very talented writer. She also is a podcast host too. What podcast are you going to be hosting?
Yeah, so I am going to continue with Visiting Dugout, which I had the pleasure of having you on, and several other of my Tigers guys. So I'll be doing Visiting Dugout, where I host, like a writer, podcaster or something from the team that we are playing that series against, and we kind of just break down our thoughts going into the series. It was a blast. I started it just this past season, and I loved it. And then I'll be doing Soxy Chicks with my good friend Bailey, who is a Red Sox writer and podcaster. But we cover MLB in general, which is a ton of fun. So those will be my 2 main podcasts. I'll always be on SouthSideSox as well. And then I will have a ton of work everywhere. So if you're interested in the Giants, the Mets, the White Sox, really anything, I'll be there.
This just cracks me up because you're going, man, I got a lot to do this offseason. And you have a lot to beat the cover. But Chrystal, thank you so much for taking the time. Really appreciate it. We'll check back in with you come springtime. Hopefully the White Sox have done some interesting things with the roster. You doubt it. But then again, Tigers, well, I don't even think Detroit's going to spend what people think, but we'll get into that just now. But
it's funny though, because I remember a few Thanksgivings ago, that is when the White Sox, signed Yasmani Grandal, and I remember at the time that was like the greatest news ever. I was in my kitchen like baking something to take to whatever Thanksgiving thing I was going to. I remember like telling my husband, and he didn't believe it, and it was just the best news ever. And now I'm just like, I just hope there's someone that knows how to hit a ball that comes to our team.
Let's just hope that there's a 4A player.
I take Chrystal's word for this all, because Rogelio will agree with me. A couple of years ago, you and Scurioso were on the show.
Yeah.
And you both kind of poo-pooed the White Sox offense coming into the season. And we were incredulous. We really were. We thought the White Sox were ready to have kind of a good year. But you guys said, no, the offense has issues. And that was dead on the money. They really they sunk to the bottom. I know that.
Yeah, Janice is another incredibly talented baseball writer who is everywhere. And we know our stuff.
Janet, it was funny because you were actually more optimistic about the Tiger season than you were about the White Sox season.
We were,
and we're the opposite of that. We're cynical assholes. It seems like. So, if not, if I'm not getting mocked for doing a fan's voice or something, there's something else, another. But anyway, now that you're there, have a great Thanksgiving, Chrystal, and I will definitely be out at Indians game sometime soon. I've been meaning to go down there because the Mudhens do play them quite a bit.
Yes, let me know.
I'll be down for that. That stadium, I know where that stadium is too, because that's in downtown Indianapolis, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Victory Field. It's an amazing field for a minor league team. It's really great, and they're remodeling it at the moment right now and doing a lot of new upgrades. And they just added this really cool area to their like suites where you've got like a server and it's open and you can go in before the game, and the food was really good. So I mean, they've really done a lot of really cool things with that ballpark. So definitely stop down. It's really great.
Awesome. All right, enjoy the rest of your month, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, see you in the spring.
See you in the spring.
Bye.
See you, Chrystal.
Bye.
All right, so Chrystal with us from the White Sox. I want to talk a little bit of the Chicago, because with some of the free agent MLB targets too on trade rumors, we'll talk about that. But all right, so as far as the trade, did you guys like the trade? Obviously, it fills the void of a veteran outfielder, and in terms of payroll wise, it's not that much considering how much payroll has come off the books.
Yeah, I mean, I can't find anything to complain about the trade. I think it's been said before by multiple people, but if this is the only thing they do, then it's pretty meh. But if it's a stepping stone onto multiple things, then it's looking pretty good.
What about you, Uper?
Yeah, I like that they acted quickly. They didn't. They made a move that they wanted to make. They obviously targeted him as someone they view as helpful. It's a 1-year deal. Not much can go wrong in 1 year, So even though that he is 34, he'll be 35 on opening day. A little long in the tooth, but when you're only talking 1 more year, hopefully they've called it right and they can milk one decent year out of him. I like the on-base percentage quite a bit. He has, average-ish power. He's shown above average power a couple times in the past, but I think last year he slugged like 400. But I like the 355 on base. I mean, they certainly need a big shot of on base into their lineup. So if he can continue to give them that for a year, that could come in handy.
First and foremost, by the way, I have to give a shout out to Blood Right. Thank you for the $5. And I gotta find it. There you go.
Exquisite. Off the Frickers building. And
good to see you. Also good to see both Tylers in here in the house this evening. Yes, and there was a comment in here that cracked me up that was talking about I swear on any given show, people named Tyler make up 10% of the active viewers. And that's a pretty funny comment there. So, but you're and Deadly Ninja B said it correctly too, that Canha is a typical prototype player, is to a T, controls the strike zone. That's something that is very apparent with him. So getting to the rest of the roster moves. So like I said, we mentioned before, Baez opting in, Carson Kelly, the Tigers picked up his option. Tigers also added Kaider Montero to the 40-man roster, and that was a smart move considering that he led the minor leagues last year in strikeouts. He, again, just like some of the other pitchers that were in the system this year, changed worked with his grips, he worked with the organization, and got progressively better as the year went on. He struggled a little bit in Toledo, but again, that's 3 levels in 1 year. Can't argue the results there. And he was set to be a minor league free agent. As far as the minor league free agent list goes, it is a who's who of prospects, and we'll get to some of the other players involved with like Tyler Alexander being one of them too. Zach Short was picked up by the Mets. But as far as notable names on the minor league free agent side who have chosen free agency, Ronnie Garcia, there was Trey Wengetter, Elvis Alvarado, who was at one point a top prospect, Jack O'Loughlin, which kind of surprised me a little bit. And there was the former outfielder who became a pitcher, DJ Peters. Everybody forgot about that experiment. But 3 catchers in Mario Feliciano, Julio Rodriguez, and Michael Paparski. As I have to say with the accent like that because Chris likes when we say it like that. But yeah, other than that, I mean, it's just the kind of a continuing I don't want to say purge, but you're going to see more and more of the old guard prospects being out there. But yeah, Tyler Alexander being waived was no surprise to me a little bit. Because it's based on injury, and I think the Tigers were probably going to seek something else elsewhere. Andrew Vasquez cleared waivers and was sent back to the minors. Is that correct?
He elected free agency.
Oh, he did.
Along with Trey
okay.
Wengetter.
So, yeah, I like this here, like the minor league free agents, a bunch of computer generated players. But yeah, that's where right now, old BK, that's a good question there. And that's something that was asked at the press conference too, when we're sitting in with Harris was, does that push Verley in third base? And he kind of avoided that question. He did talk to the media today, and as the GM meetings are underway, major league meetings are also out in Vegas, but the GM meetings are elsewhere, I believe it is. And I don't think it's in
Scottsdale.
Scottsdale. Yes. Thank you. Yeah, Scottsdale, where the Arizona Fall League just concluded. By the way, Jackson Jobe, and who did not play in the Arizona Fall League All-Star game, was elected. Same with Jace Young. He did play though. So that leaves a question about Akil Baddoo. I'll ask this question to everybody in the room here, and it looks like we're getting some people that are already asking about this. That means that Baddoo's days are numbered. Harris keep vague about it, but I'll go with you because you and I have spoken about GM talk, and I think you're becoming a decipher of GM talk. And he was suggesting that Akil Baddoo has a spot in his team. Mm-hmm. Do you see that happening?
I could see it happening. I mean, the offseason is very young. We don't know who's going to get moved, who's going to still be there in April. With Baddoo, correct me if I'm wrong, he has an option left. So there's really no big hurry to get rid of him. He's going to be dirt cheap for another year. He is still young enough where he could develop into a player. I know a lot of people do not believe that. They believe they've seen enough. I don't. We see late blooming players all the time. He has the athletic ability. I'm still convinced when I see him, when he does hit a home run, he never hits a fence scraper. He hits bombs. And guys who can hit bombs, that's not a fluke. There is some natural power there. He also does draw some walks. So I'm not saying he's going to be an all-star. I'm not even saying he's going to be a regular. But I think he's a useful enough player where until he's out of options, there's no reason to get rid of him.
What about you, Cameron?
So a few things. Akil Baddoo is actually a Super 2. I think he hit Super 2 status by like 1 or 2 days of service time. So he will be going to arbitration. So he's a little bit more than league minimum. Not that it really matters or should matter. And then the Scott Harris quote, just for sake, is he still very much fits in there. There is a role for him. We're not an organization that wants to give up players that can affect the game in that way for nothing. With that being said, I don't think he fits the Tigers roster anymore. I see him as part of a trade piece to the Yankees. Mainly because I just got done listening to the Brian Cashman interview with the press, and he talked about needing a left-handed outfielder. So I feel like Akil Baddoo is someone who could go to Yankee Stadium and hit 20 home runs rather easily. So yeah, and then there's another thing with Austin Meadows being placed back on the 40. I'm surprised no one asked about that today, but if Austin Meadows, if Scott Harris has a better understanding of where Austin Meadows is, I'm going to pick Austin Meadows over Akil Baddoo. The power ceiling is too high there to choose Baddoo over Meadows.
You know what I just thought of too? Maybe Brian Cashman's having deja vu. Maybe he's thinking about training with the Tigers because it worked out well from the past. I mean, there was another left-handed outfielder with speed, one Mr. Curtis Granderson, and he worked out pretty well for New York. So that could be that's a very good possibility, Cameron. I mean, that's spot. I was just thinking about that. I'm like, why does this sound like deja vu? Oh wait, they've done this before. So
the Tigers got Scherzer in that trade, right? Or was it Jackson? What trade?
That was wait the Curtis Granderson trade. I think
it was a three-way because we got like
Jackson
and
Austin
Scherzer.
Jackson and Scherzer.
Yeah, that came over from that because he wasn't going to, from my understanding, from what I heard later, he wasn't going to come back to Detroit. So that's what I heard. Yes. So looking at the transaction, so the Tigers also activated him off the 60-day DL, as Cameron mentioned. They also activated Casey Mize and Freddie Pacheco, a prospect pitcher who threw some really good heat, and he was recovering from Tommy John surgery. That's a guy who I would like to see hopefully get some time in the major leagues or at Toledo, because they do have a little bit of a drop off when it comes to the Blake Holub for the Brewers. That's a good pickup by the Brewers. They get a guy who really fastball, slider. He still has a little bit of a walk-in problem, but I think the Brewers have been known to enhance mouse, like get the most out of their pitching prospects. So I could see that being a guy that at some point could come up from Milwaukee sooner than later. I mean, he did a really good job last year with Tyler Madsen.
Raj, does he just touch 97 now and then, or is he at 97 a lot?
He touched 97 now. He was more only 96. He did touch 97 a few times. It was he sat 96.
Okay.
So
he's a good arm.
Yeah. No, it was a good, like, when we were talking to Harris about it, he said that, I mean, he was saying, well, we didn't really want to give him up, but at the same time they drew a place from depth. And that's something that you got to give credit. And he did give a lot of credit to Ryan Garco and development staff there with that. So definitely have the ability to look at that and go, all right, they are, at least Garco and him and Mark Connor are all on the same page. Because before there was kind of level of disconnect, and they're all in the unison about this too. So Garco is producing, and they're just letting him do what he's got to do with the development staff. So, aren't Yankee Daily Ninja B says, aren't all Yankee prospects overrated? Not necessarily. I mean, I did see a lot of them in Somerset this year. There's a few guys, but in terms of hypothetically getting, and Tyler asks what we would hypothetically get for Baddoo for the Yankees. Honestly, their pitching is, I mean, I would maybe look at a catching possibility. I mean, maybe like somebody like Tyler Wells. That'd be, I wouldn't mind having Tyler Wells to address the catching depth. But I mean, without looking at the roster depth or doing a deep dive right now, I would have to say probably the Tigers would probably have to get a starter, a minor league starter or two, or a lottery ticket essentially, and probably a catcher. That's what I would think.
I don't think he has it's such a juxtaposition, right? I think the guy has talent. I think there's something there, but I also don't think he's worth a lot in trade.
Yeah.
Because he just hit 220 or whatever it was, and certainly had some issues. And he's only an okay defender despite the athletic ability, right? He still has some miscues out there that are a little worrisome. So if they got a lower minors starter, or maybe just the next Blake Holub from the Yankees organization coming back, I could see that.
The Yankees still have, I'm trying to think, do they have IFK. I'm trying to think of if he's opting out this year or he's a free agent or not. I think he's a free agent, isn't he?
I believe
Yeah.
IKF is a free agent.
Yeah, I believe he is. I'm gonna double check that right now. Yeah, because I saw him on the free agent. I saw him on a free agent list not too long ago, and I'm just trying to remember. By the way, IKF is Isaiah Kiner Falafa, and he is a free agent. So he was signed. You just getting off a 1 year, $6 million deal. That's a guy who I actually could see Tigers going after because he could play multiple positions. It's a thing the Tigers are like now doing. And no, you're not late, whoever you are, stranger. Thank you for joining us on the podcast this evening. Yeah, I'm not sure who you are. So anyway, but yes, yeah, I don't know what a package would look like with the Yankees on that, but Joe wanted to know. I'll get a real quick question. A couple questions in here. Alex, we'll address Austin Meadows here shortly, but this question: does Young have a crack at the major leagues next year? Absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of his hard hit balls were over 100, 105, 110. Like he was hitting the ball very hard in Arizona Fall League and in the last part of Erie, towards the last part of the season. Like once he started connecting with everything, he was punishing mistakes pretty well. So if he could continue to do that, I think you could see him at some point in the majors next year. What position? We'll see, because there was an interesting thing today that Foolish Baseball posted, and Cameron, good catch here on this, where they're talking about guys with the highest WRC plus that are not in the majors yet. Colt Keith is one of them, and Justin Henry Malloy is the other. So that now you have to consider that into the Tigers' offseason plans. But again, I think the beginning of trading prospects will continue. So,
well, you look at for Jace Young, we have 1 year of track record now of Scott Harris, right? And he was in no particular hurry to get people to the majors last year. But this year was maybe a different year. I mean, if they have any designs on contending for the division this time, and a guy is if Young is on track for hitting 30 homers again, and if he's playing like that, they may decide they need to get the talent to the majors to try to win the division, depending how things are going. But last year, Colt Keith sat in the minors, Justin Henry Malloy sat in the minors. Meadows finally got his shot late. So I wouldn't think we're going to see Young in April. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think Jackson Jobe has a chance to make the majors next year as well.
Yeah.
Wilmer Flores. I think everyone you heard us talking about the past 2 years has a chance of making the majors next year.
Yeah. And there was somebody, Wage 78 in the chat said he heard a rumor about Tigers trading for Jonathan India. Has anybody else heard any truth to this? I haven't heard anything. It's been relatively quiet on that front. Because the same thing with go ahead.
I'm sorry. There was a report out earlier today that lots of teams are inquiring about him.
Right.
That he's a popular figure out there. But it sounds like the Reds are going to, as they should, they're going to want a lot for him.
I think
the Tigers want to play second base. It's hard to say.
I think we should remember throughout the whole offseason what Scott Harris said at the end of year press conference, which is he will not go after players that will block prospects. I think Jonathan India is the type of guy that you want to play every day. And then you have Colt Keith, who you'd probably want to play every day. And I don't think he wants to trade prospect capital for someone that could block Colt Keith from playing every day.
Yeah, it would be, to me, trading just would be, unless they're, I look at it this way. I know the Padres, we're going to get to the Padres fire sale thing here in a second, because Uper will remember this, and some people in the chat. This is not the first time that the Padres have done a fire sale. It's almost like the Whites, like a broken clock that strikes twice, or however that phrase goes. You expect the White Sox to fall apart, and you expect the San Diego Padres to tear down and rebuild. I mean, the first time I remember witnessing this when I was younger, I think 10 years old. Remember when they traded Roberto Alomar Jr. and trade Fred McGriff. This team has had loaded with talent, and then they just traded it away. So this is not the first. I mean, even after the 1998 World Series team, I think they traded Kevin Brown to the Marlins, I believe. I'm sorry, Kevin Brown was traded after that too, or he signed elsewhere. So it's not the first time the Padres have done shenanigans like this. So
84 they did after they lost to the Tigers in the World Series. They in the next year or so they moved Kevin McReynolds, they moved Mitchell, a lot of guys. I think they sold off Terry Kennedy and a few others. So yeah, it's kind of in the DNA of the organization.
Yeah, you know what though? That's a good reference point too, because I remember. I mean, mind you, that Steve Garvey was towards the end of his career. Same thing with Ron Say, and when they signed those veterans, but everybody remembers Kurt Backwell so well. Anyway, Bavacqua, yeah, thank you.
Bavacqua. Yes, the legend of Kurt Bavacqua.
Yeah,
I loved him.
Tyler brings up an idea about trading JD Davis from the Giants, right-handed power. Quality defender at third, 1 year left, so he won't block anybody. Harris has already traded once before. Tyler, that's not out of the realm of possibility, because there's a set of guys, and Cameron, I think you could attest to this based off some of the press conference material you've been seeing. He has a set of guys he likes, and I'm sure there's some list somewhere like this, like that just has names on it listed everywhere, and he's like star, or if he can't get them, cross them out, something to that effect. And I think that effect that is not out of the realm of possibility. I don't know what you guys think.
If you look at a lot of the guys that Harris has acquired since he's joined the Tigers, if you go to their baseball reference, a lot of the time, the only thing that's red on their baseball reference page is chase percentage, whiff percentage, K percentage, or walk percentage. 99% of the time, 75% of those are red, at least 3 out of 4 of them. So if you think the Tigers or Harris likes a player and you go to their baseball reference page and they don't have chase percentage, whiff percentage, K percentage, or walk percentage in the top 70th percentile, then I don't think Harris is going to be looking at them. In the case for JD Davis, it makes sense. He walks and he doesn't chase a lot, and he hits the ball hard. So,
well, I don't know if the Giants are looking to move JD Davis. Obviously takes 2 to tango, right? Are they looking to move him? But let's say they are. I think we could draw something to the fact, as kind of Cam is alluding to here. The Tigers just acquired Mark Canha on a 1-year deal, and they were willing to put $11 million on the table for the skill set he brings for 1 year, and give up at least a decent relief prospect. So JD Davis fits in that mold, and they have an opening at third base. So, yeah, I mean, is it a 1 in 100 shot that it actually happens? Maybe, but it's certainly a possibility.
And then, do you like JD Davis more than Matt Vierling? Is another question. JD Davis had a 738 OPS last year, which is better than Vierling, but I don't know.
What is Davis? A first baseman, third baseman? Does he play first and third? Whereas Vierling can play 2 or 3 outfield positions, right? So I mean,
yeah, they're gonna again. It seems to be the and it's almost like it fits the tone too of the prospect side of things, because Malloy. Harris said, all right, we're going to put him out in the outfield. What does he do? Puts him at third base the last month of the season in Toledo. So it is the position versatility thing is just like where are they going to basically where they're going to put everybody. I mean, I don't think Malloy. I think Malloy should be on a team. To what position he should play, I don't. Again, I don't. I think he's not a. I think he's kind of a decent average defender at third, but doesn't have the arm to play every day. Same thing with the outfield. Keefe can play him at second. He's fine. I just don't think Cole Keefe's at third because the arm is concerned. Chris is pointing this out. Chris was one of the first people to point this out, the difference between how he releases his arm, comparatively speaking, before. It's kind of, he's still not 100% since that shoulder injury. So, but yeah, there is a suggestion too. What about trading for the Dodgers and more prospect, Dalton Rushing? You know what's funny? Allegedly, by the way, that he was one of the prospects that was going to come back in the Erod trade.
Yeah.
You're not too far off from the truth, my friend. That was what was on the table. Allegedly, and I use quotations on that. So,
how often the Tigers do they have the? Let me start over. If that's your number one prospect in a team's in an organization, right? Who do those guys get traded for? I don't think they get traded for unproven talents too much. You got to have somebody who's kind of proven on the table. I don't know who the Tigers have that would interest the Dodgers. I guess that would be my thing, because the guy who answers the question, Standa, he mentions Matt Manning, and we've talked about Matt Manning in the past. He has stability, definitely. I think that he probably has the ability to have a lot of teams be interested. But facts are, he averages 14 starts a year over the last 3 years. Are you going to give up your number one prospect for that? I don't know. I'd be pretty leery of it.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I mean, I look at Matt Manning, and I don't see how people are talking about packaging Manning to get a better bat, and I don't see how I look at Manning and I see someone who got very, very lucky last year. His batting average on balls in play was under 200. I don't see how other teams look at that and be like, oh yeah, Matt Manning, he's a piece in our rotation. He's someone we want to throw out there every 5 days. I think a lot of last year was just luck, and granted, he got injured twice, and unfortunate ways. Yeah. But he hasn't thrown more than 100 innings in a year, I don't think. So I think, I don't see Matt Manning being a piece in a trade. Being the piece in the trade.
It depends on the trade. I think there's probably trades that could be made again, but I just think when you're talking about some team's top prospect coming back, questionable. And I like Matt Manning more than you guys, and don't get me wrong, I agree with everything you're saying. There's the luck aspect to it. But here's the thing. Every year I keep hearing he gets lucky. Well, and he keeps getting lucky. He gets by with whatever he's doing, however he's doing it. When he is available to pitch, he tends to get by.
It's the Jose Cisnero effect, where you look at Jose Cisnero's Baseball Savant page and you're like, it's going to blow up. It's going to happen. And we said that for 4 years, and it kind of happened this year, but man.
Yeah. And Cisnero also has chosen free agency. Just remind folks, I think we talked about this last week, but just a gentle reminder out there for people, for example, that are, I saw it earlier, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, blood rights out in Korea. So, I mean, then also there's a entire Michigan steel sign gate, which, by the way, I'm sorry, I'm sick of hearing about it. I'm so sick of hearing about it. I don't want there's so many layers to it and such BS crap to it. I'm so sick of hearing about it. Period.
Yes.
It wasn't even it's not even something like the whole Astro sign stealing thing. Within minutes, John Boy, every reputable new baseball news person had clear and definitive evidence of what was happening. And yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't pay that much attention to college football, but it's been annoying seeing on the timeline.
Yeah, it's
someone's stealing your signs. Get better signs. I'm sorry, maybe an oversimplification, but I'm not offended by what Michigan has or hasn't done here in the slightest.
Yeah, I mean, then again, the Packers are struggling too, Uber. So I understand you.
Hey, 1 game winning streak. They won the other day.
Oh man! All right. Well, I mean, at least there's the Lions. So
now going back to one thing we talked about, tell me this: when it comes to the Tigers prospects, right? Has there ever been a time you recall 3 hitting prospects at the top of an organizational list, like Jace Young, Colt Keith, and Justin Henry Malloy, all pretty solid hitters, and we don't have a clue where any of them are going to play? You know what I mean? We have morsels of evidence, but we don't. It's not definitive that he's going to be in right, he's going to be at second, he's going to be at third. It's just this nebulous vagaries out there.
Uper, for as long as I've been covering this team, and then as long as I've been a fan of this team, I can't remember. This is the first time, probably since the late 70s that the Tigers had 3 hitting prospects of this type of caliber at the same time.
Sure,
And
that's true as well.
Yeah, that is. If you look at I can give you on one hand in the 90s how many prospects they had hitting wise. Robert Fick, Frank Caliendo, not the comedian. Catalano, thank you.
Big cat.
Gabe Kapler. I said it wrong again. Gabe Kapler and Tony Clark. I'm sorry, Bobby Higginson. Travis Friend was technically 80s. Bobby Higginson, and that's really about it. And Davey Cruz technically was a Dodger Rule 5 signing, so he didn't even come from this organization. In the millennium, in the 2000s, you had Curtis Granderson, you had Brandon Inge. Why am I drawing a blank all of a sudden? Oh wait, I can't. Like Omar Infante, Ramon Santiago, but they're not. Those guys are they're all fringe guys. Infante was an all-star. These names. I've never encountered this before. I'm looking at some of the advanced stats too. It's not like Steven Moya where you're like, oh well, he hit 20 home runs, but he's also striking out a 33% strike or clip rate and plays terrible defense. Young he was voted by his peers Baseball America's best second baseman in the Midwest League. Trey Cruz is, somebody mentioned Trey Cruz in the chat. The legendary Eric Munson, too. Nick Castellanos. I was going to get to them as part of the 2010s. But in the 2000s, those are a few names. Nick, and you know what? Chris mentioned him as one of a once-in-generation talent, Castellanos. And he's right, along with Cole Keith. And you know what, Stan, to tell you the truth, Trey Cruz went out and played center field naturally. And Gabe Alvarez told us afterwards that he put his best defensive unit out there for the championship, and Cruz was a big part of it.
So do we have any inclination, or do we have any, I don't claim to be enough of an expert on anything to know this. When you have these 3 guys who can hit pretty well, we can all agree on that. They've shown it, but they don't have a home defensively. How does that affect their development over time? Does it delay things? Does it not matter? If you can hit, you can hit. It doesn't matter. I don't know. It's going to be very fascinating to see how it plays out with these 3 guys.
Cameron, I don't know what your take on this is. If you want to go ahead and go first, but I think for me, Cole Keith has nothing else left to prove. And if you put him down there again, I think it's going to hinder him a little bit, because to me, it's like, okay, you're not going to reward me for having a phenomenal year, a year that has been, in terms of like minor league wise, has been historical because among the Tigers' putrid minor league system over the last 3 years.
It will be malpractice if Colt Keith starts in AAA next year. He would have to have a Spencer Torkelson 2021 spring training where he goes like 1 for 30 with like 18 Ks for him to not be in the majors. I think they did him a disservice not calling him up at the end of last year, because we watched Parker Meadows go through his rookie slump last year. Went like 0 29 over a week stretch, and I think at some point Colt Keith's going to have that next year, and we're just going to have to sit through it, when instead he could have made adjustments at the end of last year and be ready for this year. But Colt Keith needs to make the MLB team. Justin Henry Malloy, if he shows enough defensively in spring training, he needs in either left field or third base. He needs to make the team. I don't think Jay Hen can only be a DH. He'll have to play left field. I don't like it. AJ Hinch probably doesn't like it, but he'll have to play out there. And then Jace Young should probably start in AAA. And I don't think he has much to prove either. I think if he has a similar start that Colt Keith had in AAA, he'll be up in the majors by the All-Star break.
But it's just, to me, again, I don't want to keep harping on it. Are they going to plant a flag in the ground with these guys and say, you're a second baseman? Or are they going to let them move around defensively? And does that have any effect on them development-wise? I don't know.
Yeah, I think development-wise, I think there's some sort of confusion because like I said earlier, Malloy was playing the outfield. They wanted him to see the outfield a little more than third base. But then, like I said, it was just maybe kind of a necessity they put him out there. And then you have Eddie Leonard to throw in the mix too. Eddie Leonard, I mean, he hit the snot out of the ball too. But as far as why Keith didn't reach the reason why he was up last year is because also keep in mind, this is the most amount of games he's ever played in his professional career. Because remember, as you recall, the year before he had an injury and he was out and he missed half the season. So he has been playing since the Arizona Fall League last year until this year. So honestly, I didn't have a problem necessarily having him not up here because I think that you had Bañez at second base do well. And so, but as far as whether they're going to put him on the roster wise, I think that was clear, Uper, that second base is going to be his thing.
Okay.
And I think development wise, I think that's settled. The same thing with like Winfield Perez. They have settled the fact that he is going to go in the outfield. He should never see the infield again because he has the yips and just some of it's my mouth. He'll make a routine play and all of a sudden it's like Chuck Knobloch on acid all over again. So,
Wow.
and you know, and Javi Baez brings up a good point here in the chat. Would Green start as a DH like Harper and Philly? You know what? Yes, and I could see that, but also at the same time, he's still valuable in the outfield. But you want to keep him healthy, and you don't want a situation where you want like a Brian Buxton situation where Buxton's knees are so bad he cannot play the outfield anymore. And not to say that he's going to head that way, but he's had 2 injuries, and you want to keep him out there as much as possible. So that's a very good.
Well,
go ahead.
I think that could be part of it, but Harper hurt his throwing arm, right? His UCL was his throwing arm. Green is not, correct? It was his left arm.
Yeah, it was his non-throwing arm.
So his non-throwing arm. So unless they're worried about him just hurting it again on a dive, I would think he might be out there sooner than Harper was in the field.
Yeah, and the situation with Harper is a little different because they had Kyle Schwarber and Nick Castellanos and the corner outfields, and like they needed Harper to not be a DH. They needed to give the DH spot back to Schwarber because Schwarber was costing them games in left field. So it was a different scenario. No one is quite as bad as Schwarber. Even Justin Henry Malloy, as much as it hurts to watch him play left field, is not as bad as Kyle Schwarber out there.
So Tyler Matson was talking about, he wants a little explanation on Chuck Knobloch.
Yes.
Chuck Knobloch was with the Twins. He was Rookie of the Year. He was Mr. Grit and hustle, and the kind of guy who would knock you off your feet kind of guy, and he went to the Yankees, and what happened, Raj?
Well, he committed 6 errors in one game. And there was rumors that he was tripping on acid during that game. And he was never really the same in New York. Who really kind of, I mean, when you're dropped by Kansas City towards the end of your career, and this is Kansas City in the 2000s, that's saying something. I mean,
and he just lost all ability to throw to first base. He had to lob the ball at the end. I mean, at times he just lobbed it over there because if he put any mustard on it, it was going who knows where. It was kind of the same thing that happened to Steve Sachs to the Dodgers.
Yeah, and also he's a domestic abuser too, so he's also now become a bigger douche. So anyway, not to be trash judgment, but it is what it is. But for allegedly he was doing acid during that game. Very similar to Doc Ellis, who pitched on acid, and that was in his documentary.
He was a little more successful with the acid than Chuck Knobloch was. He threw a no-hitter.
Doc Ellis had like 8 walks during that game, though. Yeah. Like he was not throwing straight either.
Yeah, apparently also he was banned. There was some, I guess this isn't part of one of the Twins Daily forum blogs, one of those old chat things. They were saying that he was banned from going to the Minnesota Hall of Fame too, the Twins Hall of Fame. But there was no secret in New York City that he was actually banned for multiple bars for drugs and boozing too much. So,
There
Anyway,
you go.
you're talking about Major League 2 Ninja Bees, a catcher who couldn't throw back to the pitcher. So,
Well, that was actually based on Mickey Hatcher. Do you remember Mickey?
oh, was it
Hatcher?
Mickey? It was Mickey Hatcher. Okay, it was Mickey Hatcher.
Yeah,
Okay,
he was catching, I think, with the Mets or the Dodgers, and he could throw to second base, no problem, but he couldn't throw the ball back to the pitcher.
I had that same issue in middle school, so I'm not gonna laugh.
Yeah.
No kidding. That's crazy.
I think the most errors in one game, by the way, was 18. I think that was set by the Tigers and the White Sox many, many, many moons ago. I think that's the most errors in one game, I think. But by a single player, the record I did find it, by the way. It was wait. Oops, sorry, I found it. Okay. It was maybe it wasn't it. I'm sorry. Most errors by a game was 9 by by second baseman Andy Leonard of the Boston Red Caps in 1876.
Yeah, that doesn't count.
Yeah.
Were they using gloves yet? They might not have using gloves yet. 1876.
A couple things that I wanted to address that Cameron brought up in our show sheet, by the way. Tyler Holton was Tiger Rookie of the Year, voted by the Detroit Sports Media, which is different. So congratulations to him. Well deserved, definitely. And we'll address the Austin Meadows thing here shortly as well. Spencer Torkelson, Tiger Player of the Year, voted by the Baseball Writers Association, Detroit chapter of the Baseball Writers Association of America. I had a vote on that. So normally I wouldn't brag of such things, but this is the first time I got to vote. And cool. I did not vote for it by Spencer Torkelson, by the way. I voted for, I'll tell you exactly who I voted for. I voted for Raul Rodriguez and Tarek Skubal.
Yeah.
Again, I mean,
was that the kind of thing where you could list your top 3 or top 5 or something?
It was top 2.
Okay.
Top 2. So what it was in case of a tiebreaker. So Jake Rogers also got consideration for a vote. He also got first place or considered for the consideration for the vote, and so did Skubal. But it was something I was talking to Cody Saberhagen because we were wrapping up softball last week for playoffs, and he said Erod, and I had my set. I was thinking about Riley Green based off the production he had before he got injured, but then I'm like, I was thinking about Torque, and he mentioned Erod, and I was like, that's crap. He did lead the team in WAR, in B WAR, so. And you look at his numbers overall. The reason why I wasn't going to give it to him, or the reason I was kind of hesitant about it, was his second half. He kind of struggled a little bit, but he ended up pulling it together. So, but then Torque 159 games. He led the team in hits, home runs, doubles. Can't argue that. And do I feel guilty for not considering him? No, I don't feel guilty about it at all, because I also look at, but his OPS is really good too. But honestly, Spencer Torkelson deserves it. I mean, he's gotten a lot of crap from fans, and he finally came through. And look, be that as it may about the batting average, whatever. Harris did not. By the way, Harris met with the press out in Scottsdale. So, but there's nothing official out there as of yet, or rather, any video or anything like that.
I don't give you. It had to be hard to make a decision, and I think basing it on Erod's WAR is legit, because let's face it, every candidate had a drawback, right? I mean, Torkelson had a bad start to the year. I mean, he wasn't very good for at least 6 weeks there at the beginning, maybe more. Skubal missed a ton of time. Erod had a disabled list, or an injury list stint, and then had some up and down at the end. And you could go on down the list. So there was no drop dead front runner. So I think your choice is as good as any, but Torkelson ended up winning, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Tyler Holton, Rookie of the Year, easiest choice, or rookie.
Yeah, that was pretty good. He deserved it.
I think Spencer Torkelson probably would have been my vote. With Skubal getting consideration, because Skubal, best pitcher in baseball since July 4th to the end of the year. by F4 at least. So
Yeah. Again, hey, look, we're having a debate about this. This is good. It's not like a very like for sure thing where before, we're talking about Brandon Dixon leading the team in home runs for Christ's sake. So I mean, this is progress, folks. The other thing I want,
Simon, Tiger of the Year. It happened.
Was such. I don't blame the beat writers for them because that team was terrible. Let's 2002 doesn't, but it was. Oh man. Oh no, Tyler, I'm sorry. It was for Tiger of the Year. That was where I had to vote on that. That was that's an award by the Detroit chapter of the Baseball Writers Association of America. So, but as far as lefties go, Skubal and Holton are the only ones in there as well. So, Yankees have offered the hitting coach position to Tigers hitting coach James Ralston. So has that been confirmed yet, Cameron? Do you know?
Hasn't been it's been confirmed as in he's going to take the position, but the they haven't agreed on the contract or anything yet. But it sounds like he's taken the position.
Taking the job. Okay. So Carlos Mendoza has been hired by the Mets. The Guardians hired Stephen Voigt as their manager, which I thought that was, I don't know, was you guys kind of underwhelmed by that a little bit?
It feels like a Jim Leland to Brad Ausmus type thing, and I'm kind of scared that the Guardians won't be good next year.
Apparently, he was shoving manure when he found out about the news. It was something like, I don't know, if you're an ex-catcher, you have a good chance of getting a job. I mean, ask Jim Leland. You can ask G. Lamont. The list goes on and on and on. Bruce Bochy.
Brad Ausmus, as you mentioned.
There's been rumored. Ron Washington, who hasn't managed in a while, has been rumored with the Angels. So I think Ron Washington deserves another chance. I think he did a really good job in Texas beforehand.
How old is he? He's got to be 70.
He's mid 70s. I mean, he's up there.
Wow.
He is 71.
He's 71?
I believe it.
Wow. You know what? With Dusty Baker retiring, we need another token African-American manager that's older.
I always loved that he got busted for cocaine that time when he was 55 and said it was the first time he tried it. Like, who tries cocaine the first time at 55? Come on. Oh, that gives me time. That gives me time. If you on that timeline, I still got a year, so I can think about it.
Yeah, I mean, imagine. Anyway, that show's gone off the rails like cocaine.
Ron Washington and Josh Hamilton in the same locker room.
What could go wrong?
Yeah, I mean, right now, Major League Baseball is holding their meetings in Vegas. So imagine the chaos that's going on around that. Although Vegas, it seems like it's cleaned up its act quite a bit. So, but there's a lot of things going on in Vegas that are just what stays in Vegas essentially. But I did want to get your feedback, guys, on the credit council going to on the deal to going to the Cubs. It was a big contract, and basically David Ross giving the finger to David Ross, who did a pretty good job. Cubs were in contention. I mean, I'll start with you. What was your initial reaction? Because I was. Well, what was funny was how wrong Bob Nightingale was. Remember, he was like, he's going to New York or Milwaukee.
Yes, I wasn't surprised he left, but I was surprised where he went. 100%. I got to believe David Ross will be unemployed for only as long as he wants to be unemployed. I think he'll have a job. I can't see why he wouldn't get a job. It seemed like he was extremely popular. I didn't hear of any tactical mistakes that he made that were outrageous on a consistent basis or anything like that. I think he definitely has a future as a manager. Yeah, I don't think this is the end for him. And yeah, as Stando says, he got screwed, and he did. But Council has that reputation of doing more with less, and I'm sure he felt that the Brewers were never going to invest what the Cubs potentially could invest. It's a bigger market with a team that can spend some money. Why not go for it? They threw a boatload of money at him. I mean, can't blame him for turning down $40 million, not turning down $40 million. So crazy move. But my guess is David Ross will be in a dugout as a manager this year if he wants to be.
And Javi Baez in our chat said it was reported the Padres are interested in Ross. So thank you for that. Cameron, what was your initial impression when you heard about it?
Exactly what Stando said, that Ross got screwed. I mean, I feel bad for the guy. I mean, he's a Chicago legend off the 2016 season alone. And yeah, I see him going out west and getting the Padres or Angels job because, I mean, why not? He elevated the Cubs this year.
Yeah, how about this,
I wouldn't
guys?
want to punish myself and take that Angels job.
Oh,
That's
no,
where
yeah.
people go to die.
Yeah. No, I mean, ask Joe Madden about that career change. Well, what was the worst screw job? The Montreal screw job of Bret the Hitman Hart or David Ross? Cameron has no idea what we're talking about, right? Cameron, no? Okay. Uper, you have an idea what I'm talking about, right?
I know what you're talking about. I don't know I'm not 100% on all the details of it, but I've certainly heard about the Hitman got really screwed on that.
So for anybody watching us on YouTube, by the way, or listening to the podcast at home now, the Montreal screw job, just look up Montreal screw job, and essentially Vince McMahon, it was supposed to be that Bret the Hitman Hart was supposed to drop the title, and he was not going to lose the title in his hometown, in his home country of Canada. And yeah. And then it was Shawn Michaels won the match, and essentially Bret Hart spit in Vince McMahon's face because he was ready to go to WCW. That's what it was. So yeah. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. See, even Deadly Ninja Bees, Montreal, I'm still pissed. Yeah. So. But yeah, Rick. Yeah. So the Cubs did that to Rick Renteria to hire Joe. I forgot about that too. Renteria. I forgot about that. That's a good call there. So yeah, I personally think that I think Craig Counsell is a fine manager. But the reason why I don't see him leaving Milwaukee too is because the Brewers are not going to spend. The Brewers are going to. There's a team I seriously believe more now after reading that about the stadium, about them not potentially getting a new stadium deal. The Brewers are going to move to Nashville. I just maybe Nashville, maybe Charlotte. Cameron, or you don't think that's going to happen?
Oh, I think it might happen, and it will be a shame because I feel like the Brewers have a good fan base. I feel like all the Midwest teams have a good fan base, and a lot of times they get screwed over by various things.
Yeah, agreed. In this case, I mean, Uper. I mean, you lived in that area, so I mean, the Brewer. I mean, how hardcore Brewer fans up there?
Well, there's no question about that. I'm very skeptical they'll move. I think they just want to saber rattle a little bit that, we could move unless you invest more into the park, what we want, and my guess is most local governments acquiesce at some point, at least something, and Milwaukee probably will. They're going to want to keep the Brewers. I would be very surprised. And if they did move, and I think they would have the Rays move in there pretty quickly, because I won't believe the Rays get they have some kind of agreement now. I don't believe they're going to get a new stadium until I see them open the door, to when it's built.
The Rays have the new stadium, but it's still in St. Petersburg. The whole issue with the Rays being in Tampa is everyone has to cross the freaking bridge to get to them, and they want it.
Yeah, I don't believe it. They say they have something cooking. I don't believe it.
So on the Craig Counsell thing, $8 million a year for 5 years. I think it was $40 million in total. So AJ Hinch, are you giving him $8+ million to keep being Tigers manager? I guess
I would.
We're 2 years out from that. Yeah, 2 more full seasons out from that. But
yeah, by the way, there's a big. Go ahead, Uber.
Well, no, I was going to say if they think he's the best guy, then yeah, I mean it's chump change. I mean you're paying Mark Canha $11 million to be slightly above average, league average part-time outfielder, right? I mean, my gosh, I mean, if he's worth $11 million, you can't tell me the guy who's pulling all the strings in the clubhouse, which is supposedly a pretty important position, isn't worth $8 million. I mean, if that's what it takes to keep him, whatever. Mike Gill or Chris Ilitch can afford it. the ghost of Mike Ilitch can afford it.
Yeah, I think there's a fundamental thing too. There's one thing that was kind of a big uproar that AJ Hinch sold his condo in Birmingham for $2.3 million. And there was just like, well, there's speculation that stop. Look at the housing market right now, folks. You right now, your house is worth a lot. I mean, some of the prices are going for ridiculous. And look, maybe he's finding a place more permanent. Who knows? But you're selling a condo in Birmingham for $2.3 million. That's good real estate speculation, my friends. That's just smart business dealing right there. The guy went to Stanford and he saw the writing on the wall and was like, for example, I got my interest rate at 3.9. Now, I mean, interest rates are what, 8, 9 for a house? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Every day I get some piece of crap junk mail in my inbox or my physical mail. We'll buy your house.
Yeah.
F off. Like, just enough. So yeah, I think, yeah, Hinch is not, yeah, relax, folks. Maybe he bought a cottage in Irish Hills, or maybe he bought a house in St. Clair Shores. I don't know. But the point is, I wouldn't worry about it. So on that note, thank you for listening to the podcast. We appreciate it. So if anything does happen the next couple of days, free agent wise, we'll be doing a podcast. Chris and I will be doing a minor league recap of things. So we're doing the Tigers Tool series. And I'm also writing an article of the 4 best Tiger minor league games of the year. Cole Keefe's Hitting for the Cycle is one of them. We got a couple more. So that stay tuned for that. That'll be on TigersMLReports.com. I've been filling in on Motor City Bengals too. So writing over there. Thanks for everybody. OBK, thank you. Tyler Madsen, as always. Madsen, thank you for Stando. I like the new picture. Yeah, so we'll be back if anything happens during the week. Otherwise, we'll be back next Tuesday. But if anything happens, breaking, will be all over it. And our thanks to Chrystal for joining us, and Cameron, thanks for jumping on today. Really appreciate it. And we look forward to talking to you guys soon. Have a good evening, everybody. Take care.